Hello, my name is Lamonte McIntyre, and I'm very excited because I'm on the set of my podcast, Quick Thought. This podcast came by way of me being in deep thought about a lot of stuff about my life. When I was 17, I was arrested for 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to prison with 2 life sentences for crime I didn't commit by a dirty cop. The things that I experienced, the things I seen, the things that I endured during that time. I went in 1994 as a 17-year-old kid, and I came home as a 41-year-old man 5 years ago in 2017. I never spoke about like my experiences in prison because, at the time I was really trying to get away from that because I didn't know how to process it at the time. Emotionally, I wasn't in the state of mind to really process what had happened with my life. But this is 5 years later, and I'm in a space in my life where I can speak about those things freely. And it's not all bad. Some of that stuff is pretty funny if you look at it from, depending on what perspective you choose to look at it from. But yeah, I want to just share some of that stuff with a lot of people because everybody asks me, how did I make it through such a horrible experience? And just like anybody else that would have to go spend their life in a place they don't want to be, it was a horrible experience at first. Starting out, I went through phases. So when I started, it was so depressing at first. Going through the moments of not being able to eat, not being able to sleep. It's a different environment. Prison from being free. It's a whole different environment. You got to learn a whole different way of living. Like showering, for instance. I never showered without boots on. When I showered, I always showered with my boxer shorts and boots. So people be like, it sounds funny why you got boots on in the shower, but at the time, it's not funny because you see people being violated and hurt because the shower shoes don't have good grip when you're in the shower and it's wet. So you you shower with boots on just in case anything happens, you prepared. But that was the prison life. So I had to adjust to being free to being on the defensive to protect your life all the time, right? So I went through moments of that and I was angry and I fought a lot and I was in a hole a lot. And prison, man, the funny thing about prison is it's a world within a world with rules just like society. If you walk into a place like that and you don't know the rules, people don't care if you know the rules or not. For instance, down the hall tables, like child hall tables, is territorial and it's a real serious thing in prison. But I didn't know about that. So one day I found myself sitting in the Serranos, which is a Mexican gang in prison. And I found myself sitting at their table. And I was sitting there by myself and I was 18 years old. And I remember sitting here and I'm eating and I'm already in prison. I'm already pissed off that I'm in prison. I shouldn't be here. So I'm pissed off. So I had a chip on my shoulder anyway. So I'm sitting here eating and this guy come up here and tell me, you lost. In prison now, I'm sitting at a table eating some shit that don't taste good. And I'm already mad because I got to be here. And this guy asked me, am I lost? Because I'm sitting apparently at a table that belongs to somebody else. And I just couldn't understand that. That was my first time with that whole territorial thing, being in the wrong place, the wrong time. You can't even use a phone. Some phones are marked for other gangs. Some areas on the yard you can't go to. Certain places you just couldn't frequent because it occupied by different gangs. Me, I was a part of the Gangster Disciple, the Gangster Disciple Nation at one point in time when I was younger. So that was a gang I ran with. I was the treasurer of the gang. So everywhere I went, every prison I went to, they voted me as the treasurer because of the way I handled money and because of the way I was able to turn 2 into 4 and 4 into 8. That was my specialty, right? So the thing with being a treasurer, I learned. Now I'm gonna tie all this into what's going on with my life now, but I learned something in prison. I learned money management by being the treasurer for the Gangster Disciples. And I didn't understand how that would apply to my life now, but it did. And that's just some of the things I was doing. And another thing I did when I was in prison that I do now that it was a skill set I didn't know that I was preparing myself for was I ran stores, which means if you don't have a resource in prison, or if you don't have somebody looking out for you, if you don't have support, you got to make your way. So the state will give you $9 a month. So I made $9 a month just by being in prison. So what I would do is, because I didn't have no help, because my family wasn't there, shame on y'all, I saved my $9 a month, and I bought a bunch of snacks like honey buns and cookies and chips, right, with $9. I took that $9 and I turned that $9 into 18. Then I took that $18 with the canteen and I turned it into 32, right, or 36. And I kept going and I kept going, I kept going until that's how I was living and taking care of myself. That skill set, being able to rely on yourself, being able to problem solve, being able to turn one into two, all comes from not having no support and being able to rely on yourself. So now that I'm here and I'm an entrepreneur and I do have multiple businesses and I do support myself in that way, I see now I'm just running a store again. Yeah, instead of Zuzu, Wham Whams, and honey buns, it's just haircuts and cars and clothes and same old thing. It's just different stuff to sell. But I learned a lot. It sounds that way now because it sounds like, oh yeah, you just went through prison 23 years and I'm just sharing the things I learned. So how did I get here 5 years later and what am I doing and why am I on this platform? Well, everything in my life was mental, but I didn't know it. I went through those events in my life and I was depressed, I was sad, I was hurt, I was fearful. And all those things did was lower my vibration, and it basically got me sick where I ended up getting cancer while I was in prison. Now, sickness, stress, all that stuff comes from thinking wrong. Everything is mental. This is what I didn't know while I was going through that experience. Everything that I was experiencing, everything that I went through that I felt was by way of what I was thinking. No one made me feel bad. Even though I was in a bad situation, even though I had no help, I had no support, it was me that was generating those feelings. That's why I know that everything is mental. Everything that we see in our life, everything that we feel, all the things that we go through, all those different ranges of emotion, is still us. It's still generated from what we think. When I was going through those moments, the first 8, 7, 10 years of that was negative because of the way I was thinking. Everything went against me. I mean, I caught new cases in there. I was getting accused of things I wasn't doing. I was attracting some of the worst kind of people. I'm talking about everything was going against me based on how I was feeling. I was so down. I was so depressed. I was so hurt, right? Because of that experience that I attracted everything that I was feeling. I was generating this feeling of negativity, and everything because of it came to me in a negative way. Then I had an experience. I met a guy named Shorty. I was a part of a hospice program. And this hospice program where we would go in and help the people that was in the clinic that was sick, and they didn't have a lot of help. So I was helping these people that was sick in this hospice program, and I met this guy named Shorty. Shorty had like cirrhosis of the lungs, where his lungs was crystallizing, and they had no cure for what was ailing him, and he was dying because he couldn't breathe. But I met this dude, and he taught me this is really where I got the whole changing my mindset, because up until that point of meeting Shorty, my mindset was horrible. I was really down. I was depressed. I was always thinking wrong and negative. And I met this dude, and this dude was dying. He was literally dying. Like, this dude knew he had an outdate. He knew he wasn't gonna get better. He knew he was gonna die, but yet this man had more peace than me at that time. And we used to talk, and he's always tell me about God, and he used to tell me about what he believed in. And at this time, I didn't believe in God. At this time, I'm thinking God was a sham, because I'm like, I don't want to be a part of no God that will allow that something like that to happen to a 17-year-old kid. But he told me, he showed me where to find God at. He showed me about peace. He told me about spirituality. So from that moment on, after meeting Shorty, I literally changed my mindset. From that moment on, everything that used to go against me didn't, because my mind stopped going against it. I started thinking better. I started to take better care of myself. I started to be positive about things, and literally everything changed. So at one point in time, when I was attracting things to me negative, positive started happening, because my mind started changing. And that's when I eventually attracted everything I needed. This is why the laws of attraction comes in, that I was in a cell, no help, nobody there, and I attracted everything I needed. I attracted the Innocence Organization, Centurion Ministries. I attracted my legal team, which is Cheryl Pilot and Morgan Pilot. I even attracted a wife, you know. I'm going through divorce with it now, but it was good when I needed it, right? So I still attracted love, but everything I needed, I still attracted it without having to go out and get it. So fast forward 5 years later, after going through all that stuff, after being here now, this is what I want people to know. This is what Quick Thought is about. This is really why I started to speak, and I started to use my experiences and the things I survived as a tool to help people build on who they really are, and to build on like the emotional part of us. Like, inside of us, we have this power we don't tap into because no one told us where to go, where to find it. It's only when we don't have nobody, we don't have no support, we don't have nobody reaching out to us or helping us, that we can find that power. And it's a real power. Some people call it prana, people call them God, some people call it chi, inner source, strength, universal energy, whatever you like to call it. It's a real source, and we all have it. The problem is we don't know how to tap into it. When things go wrong, when things go sour, when we go through difficult situations, what do? Most of us go through sex, we go through drugs, we go through mamas, daddies, we go through somebody to help us get through these moments, right? But really, the only help we need is already inside of us. It's an energy, it's a source. You came in life with it. I don't like to give it names like God or universe, because the religious people like to take things and turn them up. I'm not into that. I'm talking about source. How did a 17-year-old kid go to prison as a 17-year-old kid, spend 23 years in prison, come home 23 years later at 41 and manage to live? He do it because he understands that everything is mental. Everything is going to play out by the way I think about it. If I see my life as positive, peaceful, and happy, that's going to play out in my material world. My life is what it is based on how I think. If you look at a person now and you don't see something too good, and you see a positive environment for that person, that positive environment is created by that person's mindset. We all got what we got based on how we thinking. If you're not where you want to be in life right now, it's only because you're not thinking right. If it's something that you really, 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 really want, the only way you're going to get it is if you focus on it and think about it. The greatest minds in the world all got what they wanted by way of thinking about it. And everything do come by way of our thoughts. So when we was kids, it was cliche to our teachers to say, you know, the mind is a terrible thing to wait. Your mind is so powerful. Use your mind, right? Once again, no one told us how. So if we have a mind and it's powerful and it gets us everything we need, how do we use it to get it? Well, what is the mind? The mind is a powerful energy source, and thoughts are electric and magnetic. And those thoughts that we have, and we have 70,000 thoughts a day. So all those thoughts we have creates the material world and the matter that we see around us. The microphone that I'm speaking on, the chair that I'm sitting in, the TV or the microphone, the TV or the phone that you're using to watch me on was created with matter that came from thought, which is energy. That means every thought you have is a creative energy that go and create the matter that we see. I didn't know that. Now that I do know that, I'm mindful of what I'm thinking. And it's easy to focus what you're thinking on without distractions. That's going to be another podcast, another episode, but distractions is really the only thing that keeps us from our higher source. We can't be distracted. Every day we wake up, we got to be focused on what our intentions are, what we want. That's how we manifest it. That's how it comes to fruition. That's how it come to be. Everything in your life, everything that we see came by way of a thought. Everybody are creators. We all are creators. That's why if you really pay attention, everything that you see, everything that you use was created, was once a thought of somebody's, right? So be a part of that. Be a creator. I created freedom, believe it or not, because didn't nobody look for me. 23 years sitting in prison. It's a needle in the haystack. It's a lot of people sitting in prison innocent right now and no one's looking for them. So how do one go from being in prison to being free when no one's looking for them? You have to vibrate high enough to get on the frequency of what your heart desired most. Mine desired freedom more than anything. So what I did, I put all my energy, all my thoughts on freedom. Everything became freedom. I generated the feeling of having freedom before freedom even came. That's what faith is. Generating the feeling and the thought of having something. Feeling good about having it before even getting it. That's what we all have to do to manifest the things we want. That's how you really activate the laws of attraction. Generating the energy and the feeling of having something. Like I was in prison, but I used to run around the track and I used to always envision me being out doing interviews about my life in prison. I used to think about that stuff over and over again until I walked out of the courthouse doing interviews. I walked out into what I was thinking about. And was it distractions? It was a lot of distractions. It's always going to be distractions. And we always going to blame our lack of where we want to go or our lack of focus on the things that's distracting us on the outside. And really it's us. It's going to go back to the laws of mentalism. Everything really is about us and how we think about it and how we see it and how we respond. If you really want to know what power is in your response to everything you don't see in life. Everything is mental. If you want a job and this is a dream job and you really, really want this job, the only thing you should be doing is feeling the feeling of having the job already. You should already be driving to work, seeing yourself driving to work, seeing yourself sitting in your desk, seeing yourself imagining the feeling of already being at the job. That's how you create it. Everything comes by way of what you think. If you want that car, I'll tell you something about a car. When I was in prison, all I wanted was a BMW or Range Rover. I thought about that from watching Love and Hip Hop. It saturated my mind and it became a part of what I was thinking and what I wanted. That's the only cars I ever drove. My first car was a BMW and I drive a Range Rover now. That's all I ever drove because in prison, that's all I saw myself driving. I can either smell the leather. I can either feel the wheel of it. That's what manifestation is. So I'm going to tell you a trick about manifestation. If you want a car, all right, any kind of car, I'm going to tell you how you get it. You can either get a picture of the car you want. That's a visual. That's going to put it in the middle part of our mind where we got to create it. And you got to just see the kind of car you want. Descriptive. The kind, the color, the make, the model, the smell of it, the leather of it. I'm talking about you got to see yourself inside of this car, behind the wheel, in the cockpit, smelling the leather, touching it, feeling it, seeing how fast it go, feeling the engine. That's the energy, the feeling you got to generate before it materialize. That's how you attract everything you need. And it works for everything else. It works for houses. It works for cars. It works for people. The only trick about people is people have their own will. So you can attract what you want in people, but you may not like what you attract because people still have their free will. But this really works with material stuff that don't have a free will. But I want everybody to be aware that you do have within you the power to attract, to create, to build. It just takes focus. It takes we can't be distracted doing the things we're doing. Like there's always going to be things to put us away from what we want and what we want to create. Like relationships. One of the biggest distractions there is when it comes to creation There's nothing wrong with having relationships. There's something wrong with not being able to create while you in one. So the main thing now is to really, really focus on is just creating what you want in your mind and then not letting nothing distract you from getting it. I wanted freedom. I didn't let nothing distract me from getting freedom. I wanted a business. I wanted my own business. I got my own business. I never let nothing distract me from doing that. Like everything I wanted to put my mind on, I have it based on focus. Albert Einstein, one of my favorite guys. And everybody always asks me what my connection with Einstein is. He's a white guy with a fat mustache, you know. I think he's was Swedish or something, you know, German. Like, what's your connection to this guy? Well, Einstein was considered to be a genius based on his way of thinking. He thought outside the box and he was always progressive with his thinking. And he had a habit. He had a bunch of habits. But one habit he had was when he wanted to create, he would put something in his hand, like a metal ball, and he'd have a plate at the bottom where he's napping at. So when he hold his ball, it's sitting over that plate. So when he doze off, the ball drops the plate, hit the plate, and he wakes up. Because every idea, every thought, every invention came by way of his dreams, and he knew that. So he would take naps to get these ideas, and he would wake up and jot them all down. Now, I say this because this is why this is my guy, because you know how focused you have to be to tone out everything in your life, right? To know that you're a creator, to know that you're using your mind, everything you have is for creation. And he devoted his time to creation. Nikola Tesla did the same thing. That's why I like him. He did the same technique where he took naps and he would wake himself up out of these deep trance-like sleeps, and he would jog down what he saw. So everything you see by way of electricity, by way of technology, Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein had a lot to do with it, but they came focus. They were able, the only thing that separates us from the great minds of Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla is our level of focus. Everybody's a genius. Everybody is aware. Everybody's conscious, and everybody's a creator. The only thing that separates the people that you see that are doing those things they really want to do and the people that's not, focus. Some people are easy distracted. Some people get a phone call about a family member and they, oh, my mama, my daddy. They going off, right? Some people get calls, and some people get things going on in their personal life, and it is just, and here's another thing I want y'all to be aware of. It's only when you make your mind up to do something great that something crappy is gonna follow it. It's only when you make your mind up to fast that you're hungry. It's only when you make your mind up to do better with yourself that this person you've been trying to get away from come around. You have to understand what duality and balance is. Like, for every good thing, there's something bad to give it balance. Like, night don't exist without day, and up don't exist without down. So we have to be mindful of balance. There's no bad things in life, just things that balance out are good. If we want things to be perfect and we want things to be good, expect some negative stuff to be tied to it. It's not going against us, it's just there for balance. But once again, it's about mentalism. The law of mentalism states that everything in existence is mental, which is true. So if you feel like you're in a bad situation, a bad relationship, you there because of your mental state. You feel like you're in a bad job you don't like, you there because of your mental state. You there because you're choosing it. If you feel like you're not in a place where you want to be financially, even that you choose. We choose all of it because it's our creation. It's what comes out of our mind. It's what's inside of our head that makes it all happen. We really literally are the creators of all. The Bible say, if those who believe in the Bible, I read the Bible and I quote Bible because it's one of the oldest texts, and interpret it right, it's a good guide. But according to the Bible, every last one of us is created in the image and likeness of God. That means when you look in the mirror, you're supposed to see God. God had the power to speak life and create. You was created in the image and likeness of God. which means you have the power to speak things into existence and create. That's why the Bible said that life and death is in the power of the tongue. Because every time you speak, everything you say after I am, you become. I am powerful. I am strong. I am sick. I am weak. I am whatever I am. After that, I become. I learned all that by being in prison. I learned that from being desperate. I learned that from not having no support. I learned that from relying on me. And inside of us is a God. That's why between the temple is a temple of God inside, and then the body is a body of Christ. Because of the energies inside of this body can create whatever we like. Everything, even this set, this is all in my head. The barbershop that I have, it was in my head. I used to always tell everybody how I'm gonna have a big barbershop. My barbershop gonna be this. My barbershop gonna be that while I was in prison. And now I'm here in my barbershop shooting a podcast. That's dope. But anyway, I'm saying we have the power to create as we like. We are the creators. Everything is mental thoughts. So mind you, 70,000 thoughts a day we have uncontrollably. If you know it or not, these thoughts is energetic energy. These thoughts are creative energy. That's why emotion is energy in motion. Every time you generate a feeling, that energy that you just generated is finna leave and go somewhere. And it's going to create matter for you. That's why you got to be mindful of your thoughts. Be real mindful of your thoughts. They're going to go create something for you. And believe it or not, you are a magnet. We all are a magnet to whatever magnetism. You know, we have this magnetic energy that if you think of something over and over and over again, you attract it. So if you fear something and you really don't want it, don't think about it. Because if you think about it over and over and over again, you're going to attract it. That's who we are. If I think about being stopped by the police all the time, I got a fear of cops. I'm always going to get pulled over by the police because I have a fear there, right? Some people have a fear of being robbed. Those people get robbed a lot because they keep thinking about being robbed. That means you're creating all paths for you to being robbed. That's how powerful our thoughts are. Nothing and no one outside of us control our thoughts or control us. Everybody that's in the situation they in, they only in that situation because their thoughts led them there. Had I not changed my way of thinking, I would have still been in prison right now with 2 life sentences. And I was definitely thinking wrong. I was angry. I was hurt. I was frustrated. And all those years I was angry, hurt, and frustrated, I kept attracting angry, hurt people and situations that kept making me angry and frustrated. They even charged me to a crime I didn't commit while I was in prison. Yeah. Hanging out with people that's no good. Like I had family and friends. They was my partners, but they was reckless. But I loved them because they my family. That was my partners. But they had gotten into some shit. They did something in prison. They did something they weren't supposed to do. And they ended up getting me. So while I was in prison fighting a double homicide that I wasn't responsible for, I caught a new case, a whole nother felony while I was in prison because of my family, my friends. Another thing I learned, my thinking was wrong because I kept attracting all this negative vibration, this lower vibration energy based on how I was thinking. That's why now it's important for me to remind everybody who they are and where they come from. You have to be mindful of your thoughts. Your thoughts should be accounted for. Should nobody be so emotional that they just got all these raging thoughts running around, right? If you control the way you think, you control your life. If you're thinking in the past, that's depression, I guarantee it. If you're thinking in the future, that's anxiety. You had to stay in the moment. They always ask me how I got by that. How did you get by prison time? How did you do 23 years for a crime you didn't commit? How did you do that? I stayed in the moment. I stopped thinking about everything I couldn't change. I stopped thinking about tomorrow and I stopped thinking about yesterday. And I started focusing all my energy and my attention on today, the moment. So it's a presence. It's a present for a reason. It's a gift. Dogs can do it. You ever wonder why dogs can stay in the moment, don't talk to you, don't have to show you no attention, but they get everything they want? They attract everything they need too, because they thinking the same thing. I want to be touched on and I want to be fed. And they get all that all the time. Cats do too. Every animal in the kingdom get what they want by just constantly thinking about what they need. We don't do that. We think about what we don't have. And that's why you're going to get some more of what you don't have. Don't think about that. Generate the feeling of what you already. It's like thinking about a thing so much that you want until you see it show up, until you walk into it because you didn't thought about it so much. Like you oversaturate your mind with the things that you do want, none of the things you don't want, and you're going to get what you want. The laws of attraction, manifestation. If you don't understand what it is, look it up. I advise everybody to really pay attention to who they are. I advise everybody to really take time to mind who they are and what they feel. And know that if you're feeling something negative, if you're feeling something that's not good, you have at least 15 minutes to get rid of that feeling before you try to attract and draw more of that feeling to you. You had to stop thinking negative, and you got to be really mindful of what you're thinking at all times. At all times. I could have easily died in that place. A friend of mine just died. John Keith Calvin. He died of cancer in that place. I know how it is, and I know what he was dealing with, stress. He was innocent. He wasn't supposed to be in prison. So stress will kill off your cells and they would turn cancerous. And it's going to kill you. Guess what killed him? Is his thoughts. Your own thoughts. Your own thoughts will go against you. Your own thoughts is the power, the energy that can kill you. I can think myself to death right now. Almost did. A lot of friends of mine did. A lot of guys I knew that was loved, I was real close to, didn't make it out of that situation. John Calvin was like the 15th person I knew I was close to didn't make it out of that place. And I was destined to do the same thing. I had cancer too, because I was thinking the same thing they was thinking. I was thinking the same exact thing they was thinking. Hopelessness. I was depressed. I was sad. But if you think about it again, it's my mind. It's my thoughts. No one gave me cancer. No one made me sick. It was me. Can't nobody make you sick. Can't nobody give you negative thoughts. You. It's all generated by what's inside of you, by what you're thinking. And if you think more negative will come. If you think more positive, I guarantee you more positive is going to follow that. Quick thought. This platform is serious to me because I went through a lot. My best friend hung himself in that place. Marcus Clemens. That was my guy. We called him Little C. That was my guy. That was my everyday. He had 99 years and he was a good dude. He didn't deserve to be in prison either. Young guy, good dude. And we used to have conversations, in-depth conversations about God. And if God was real, why would he let so much bad things happen to good people? Like that was his main thing. He was bent on that. He kept asking about it over and over again. Like we had these conversations like, I don't understand God. If he loved us so much, why would he allow us to go through such difficult times, right? So one day we was together, me and Lil C, and we was both max custody. So we both had a lot of time. I had 2 life sentences. He had 99 years. So in that kind of situation, when you got a lot of time, you stand the max. So I was able to work my way to the medium facility. And I got to the medium and he stayed in the max. And I was there, the medium, for like 2 months. It wasn't even like 2.5 months. And they had told me that he had hung himself. And he was a tall guy. He was like 6'4". And those cells were like small cells you could stand up in. So if he hung himself in a cell, he could have just stood up and saved his own life. But he was so desperate to get out of that situation. And the way his thoughts he couldn't gather enough energy and enough thought to save himself, that he thought that was the only way out. So he took his life. And ever since then, and that was like 2007. Ever since then, I've always made it my mission to be a voice of reason. So I always call myself the voice for the voiceless, because I always replay those conversations we used to have. And I used to always be like, well, if I had something to share with him, it'd be cool. I mean, At the time, I didn't because I was confused like he was. But then I thought after he killed himself, I know it was something I could have said to him that could have prevented him from doing that. And ever since then, I've been speaking. I've been a mentor. I've been speaking. This was the birth of Quick Thought. This is what led up to this. This was years ago before I even got out of prison. Then when I got out of prison, I just started speaking. And I wasn't charging nobody for anything. I was just thinking it was a word or two within what I was going to speak about that would save somebody. And that's why I've been doing that. And that's why I take it serious when I speak. And that's why I did this podcast. It may not mean a lot to some people, but it means a lot to me because of how much I lost in my life to be here to speak to people about anything. So I just speak about what I experienced, and hopefully that what I experienced can help other people. And I know what it's like being depressed. I know what it's like being sad. I'd have been through every possible range of emotion when it comes to hurt and pain. I can write a book on it, but I also can write a book on how to deal with it too. Because I lost I lost family. I lost loved ones. I went through that experience 98% alone. I had my mother was there, my baby brother was there a lot as support systems, but I couldn't rely on them. Like my mother don't know me because I didn't tell her about who I was like in that situation because all the things I did and had to do to get through it, I wouldn't want to burden her with that. So I didn't tell her about who I am and how I evolved. So I went from a 17-year-old kid to I grew up without my mom, so without being able to lean on her. But once again, that taught me something. It taught me that inside of us, we do have an inner power, inner strength that we all can really rely on. We just don't know it because we rely on other people so much. Like I had a mother had my mother been there like I wanted her to, it would have handicapped me. And I would have relied on her to guide me through it. So now I'm grateful for the experience of just like being alone and alone long enough to know that I have a higher power, a higher source inside of me. And we all do. We just don't know it. Like I say, we go to church and these pastors ain't teaching us nothing. They're not really speaking on, they can't actually. They're not really speaking on God, where to find God, who is God, where is this strength that we speak about? Like, if we talk about faith all the time in church, how do I activate it? If we talk about God all the time in church, where can I find him, right? So these are the things I had to learn on my own. I found strength, I found peace, and I found prosperity in these things. So that's why I share, because I know this is going to help somebody else. I know that everything I went through wasn't for me. I know. Like all that stuff I was in prison actually dealing with, I didn't know that behind the scenes it was a dirty cop named Roger Golubski behind it all. I didn't know that my mother was a victim, one of many victims of this person. Right? All these things like came to me. They came in my life and I had to deal with them. It's not something I wanted to deal with, something I just had to deal with. And because I'm on the other side of it now, I'm not going through the hurt moments like I did. I'm not suffering like I used to do with all of it. And I'm on the other side of it. I'm like now I'm a management coach. I'm like a stress management coach at this point. I understand what trauma is. I understand what post-traumatic stress. See, all these different things, I understand what they are. And I also understand they mental. I also understand that if I don't say I have post-traumatic stress, I don't. If I don't claim any of that stuff, I don't. Your mind is that strong and is that fragile at the same time, depending on what stage we're in, depending on what level of frequency our mind is in, the beta, theta stage, whatever stage is in, will determine how well we take in information, how well we respond to the things that's outside of us. It's very important to keep your mental state good. And how do we do that? Well, I read a lot. Reading, exercising, eating clean food, because eating dirty food dirties up the mind. So if you put processed foods in the body, in the stomach, which is the second brain, it's going to fog and clear up. It's going to clog up the way we think. It's going to foggy up your mind. So I developed good habits during those time in prison that still carry on to me this day. Like I don't eat a lot, and I do exercise. I do run a lot. I am mindful of what I put in my body because I do understand it affects the way I think. So the average person right now, is going through things, feel like they can't get out of the situation. They running around in circles, and really is basically what they put in their bodies. Most of us is under the influence of a drug called processed foods and don't know it. But that's another part of this mentalism thing. It's another part of thoughts and being strong with your mindset, because the mind is formed by habits. Whatever we doing is going to determine how the mind's functioning. So if I'm always doing something poor, my mind's going to function poor. I guarantee it. I mean, if I'm eating poor, if I'm living poor, if I'm thinking poor, that's what my mindset is going to basically show me. My mind is going to start showing me images of what my life is based on what I'm thinking. So I had to think better. I had to eat better. I had to respond to life better. I had to apply more positive things in my life and less negative things if I want more positive things to show up. It's all mental. Everything starts with the way we think. If I wake up every day, and I wake up every day and I always start with what I want to see and what I want. I always say, today is going to be a good day, or I love my life, or I'm always starting with something that's going to encourage me to do the things I got to do. I'm never starting with complaining, especially about nothing that happened yesterday. Always start your life, always start your day with something constructive, because that's how you're going to dictate it. I started my day with something positive. I got up and I took care of the body. The body clears the mind out. The body releases tension. The body releases serotonin when you work out. All the mood stabilizers, them help you feel good. I get into that. Yoga, meditation, all these things to freeze the mind. The mind really is a terrible thing to waste, because that's the only thing that we can rely on. Though nothing else really exists in this life but the mindset. So I'm going to go back to, how do a person go through 23 years of being in prison for a crime he didn't commit, 2 life sentences, no help, family kind of left. He get through it with a mindset. He get through it with straining his mind to focus on the moment, not yesterday or tomorrow, but always focus on the moment. And that moment should be spent with all thoughts of what you want to walk into tomorrow. I already know my tomorrow gonna be like, because I already know what I'm thinking today. I already know what my life is gonna do, because I'm already thinking about it today. I don't have no doubts about how my next 5 years is gonna be, because I'm already thinking for it now. I already feel it. Quick thought came by way of my thoughts. I see it. It's the first episode. I'm telling y'all right now, as I look in the camera, it's gonna be the biggest podcast you ever seen. I already saw it. Can't nobody stop it. So be peaceful. And we're going to end on a good note, because I think this is about my time. And I could go all day. But I really want people to pay attention to this very first episode and what we talking about here. We talking about mentalism. We talking about thoughts that's creative energy that becomes things once we think about them. So you have to mind your thoughts. Thoughts are energy that creates matter. Matter is everything our hearts desire. Everything that we want in our heart as a desire is matter. Whether it be a car, whether it be a house, whether it be a job, geographical location, whatever it is that you right now feel like you need in terms of a desire, is going to come by way of your thoughts, which is energy that you generate, that you create, because you are a creator. So go create.